Welcome Dungeon Masters far and wide, thank you for stopping by. A question I get a lot from new DMs is how do you make a combat encounter? Especially one that won't be too easy or difficult enough to TPK your party. I've found a lot of advice regarding combat encounters is ethereal and hard to implement for new DMs. This will not be a video with vague advice. So, without further ado, here's how you balance a combat encounter. Add up all the player characters and ally NPCs hit points. If you're using something like D&D Beyond or Roll20, this should be pretty easy. Then, do the following. If you want your combat encounter to be hard, make the enemy's combined health equal to the party's combined health. For a medium encounter, the monster's hit points should be 20 to 30% less than the party's health, and 40 to 50% less for an easy encounter. Any encounter over 120% of the total party's hit points, you can regard as a very hard encounter. Player characters are likely to die in order to achieve victory. Now, be warned, this formula only works for a balanced action economy. This means that the enemy combatants are either equal to the amount of player characters and friendly NPCs, or are less than their total number. In D&D 5th edition, as soon as there are more bad guys than friendlies, things get much harder for the party. You might think that you've planned a medium encounter, but if you have PCs outnumbered 2 to 1, they'll have a much harder time. This also means that the overall attacks of each side should be about equal. Count up the party's total possible attacks, usually giving an extra 1 or 2 to fighters and magic users depending on their level. This is the one part of the video that kinda depends on the group. Maybe your mage doesn't have any area of effect magic, meaning that you should probably calculate them as only having 1 attack. Nevertheless, the enemy should have about 75% of the attacks as the party. So if the party has 10 attacks, the enemy should be making 7 to 8. The enemy attacks should account for AoEs. If you have an encounter with a devil that can cast Fireball, maybe that right there is 3 attacks against a party of 4. Now, as your campaign progresses, you might want to tweak these initial numbers. If your party has no healing magic, maybe a hard encounter for them becomes 70 to 80% of their total hit points, because they cannot recover as easily if an enemy crits and knocks a character unconscious. Adjust the formula with what works best for you. However, when you start a campaign, these rules I have lived by to great results. So far I've taken 7 campaigns to level 20, and I've only had 1 TPK. I might note that TPK was when a party willingly charged into an army of Yuan-Ti, but that is a story for another time. There are so many more tips I want to give about D&D combat, but I'm trying to keep this video short. So get out there DMs and run some great combats. And also, thank you for entering the Donjon.